Hey everyone! We just wanted to list some trigger warnings here before we got started in the episode. These are some themes throughout the book, as well as some things that we talk about in our podcast. So, just as a heads up before you go into this, we will be talking about some bullying, death of a character, cheating, drug use and drug addiction, emotional abuse, forced outing, homophobia, mental illnesses, murder, partner abuse, some sexual themes, and suicide. So if any of those topics are uncomfortable for you or may cause you issues, please consider that before reading this book and starting this episode of our podcast. But as we enter into this, we are excited to have you with us, and we can't wait to hear what some of your thoughts are on this novel. So here we go.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of I'm Not the Book Expert, but She Is. I'm Maggie, and I am not the book expert, but
I am, and this would be Rachel, obviously, as we are still co-hosts of the same show.
We've managed to put up with each other for 4 whole episodes now. I'm very impressed with us.
4 whole episodes and the preview to the show.
And the show trailer. So 4.5 episodes, basically.
Yeah. 4 and a bit, because 7 minutes is not half of an episode for us.
Yeah, I set a stopwatch this time so we can at least have some conscious idea of how we're doing.
We have lots of opinions.
We have lots of things to say.
Yeah, and there's no shame in that.
And the nice thing about being on a podcast is that you can talk about things as much as you want, and it doesn't matter if anybody's listening or not.
Right, because we started this podcast for ourselves.
Indeed. So today, I already mentioned I am not the book expert, but Rachel, you are. And what are we talking about today?
Today, we are talking about One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. And as I mentioned in the last podcast, and probably the one before that, murder mysteries are my jam.
Yes. And I guess I'll just say I used to read a lot of mysteries when I was younger. And for some reason, I never got into the murder mystery thing. I don't know. I just never found a lot that I liked, but I mean, I read all the Truly Devious books this year in 2021, and I just read One of Us is Lying and its sequel, One of Us is Next, which we'll be talking about on our next episode, because Rachel introduced me to all of those. So I have refound my love of a murder mystery, but Rachel is definitely the expert.
I have also read all of Karen M. McManus's murder mysteries with the exception of one, because it just came out last month. So I was waiting for my library to get it in.
What's that one called? I remember seeing it.
You'll Be the Death of Me, I think. Give me 1 second. I have it in my Libby app. Yep, You'll Be the Death of Me.
Oh, good.
So she has written One of Us is Lying, One of Us is Next, which is the sequel to One of Us is Lying. She's currently working on One of Us is Back, which will be the sequel to these, but that is not set to come out until 2023. So we are counting these as a duology, which is how it fits into our category for this season.
Yes.
She has also written Two Can Keep a Secret, which is a murder mystery kind of about twins, and
The Cousins.
One more. The Cousins, yes, which I really liked. The Cousins came out this year, I think.
I think it did, because wow, let me try that again. I think we talked about it when we were talking about the Goodreads Choice Awards.
That makes sense. So, you ready to get started, Maggie?
I am so ready to get started. I think we should make this confession. I'm going to make this confession whether you want me to or not. We were originally going to do this season in a different order. We picked out a bunch of books, and then I just kind of happened to pick up One of Us is Lying. My holds came in at the same time for this and the sequel, and so I listened to them both in 1 week, and I was like, Rachel, I need to talk to you about these now. So we moved everything around so that we could talk about One of Us is Lying and One of Us is Next first before we went into the other books. So I am ready to go.
While we're on the confessions train, I just finished my reread today. I only had 50 pages left today, and I could have worked through them last night, but I decided instead, I knew I had like a 45-minute car drive, and I can read in the car, so that isn't really an issue for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I finished it in the car today.
That
and didn't bring another book with me.
Why would you do that?
Well, I decided to read a book off my Kindle app, so it worked out in the end, but it was still, a moment.
I thought I was going to sneeze there for real for a second, but I did not, so we're fine. But yes, it is still a real book.
Yes.
Yeah. I actually read, I can't remember if you did this too, because we talked about it. I actually read, the first time I read One of Us is Lying, I listened to it as an audiobook, which I really enjoyed. They have, so the book, I guess we'll talk about it in a second, but it has 4 perspectives. And it has a different narrator for each perspective in the audiobook. So I really appreciated that. I do have the hardcover now, which I just bought the other day, and I was a little disappointed because it has one of the permanent stickers on the dust jacket that says TV show streaming now on Peacock, and I was like,
Do you want to be jealous, Maggie?
Yours does not have a sticker, does it?
Mine does not have a sticker because we got it in 2018.
I am a little jealous.
Okay, you want a little cutesy moment?
Sure.
We got it on our honeymoon.
Aww. Nothing says true love like a murder mystery.
My husband was reading this, and I was reading Murder on the Orient Express. And I didn't read, because the goal was he would read this, and then I would read it.
Mm-hmm.
He had no interest in Murder on the Orient Express. I just really love Agatha Christie.
Fair enough.
I didn't read it for like 3 years after we got it.
How could you?
And for our podcast listeners who aren't seeing our Zoom meeting right now, I'm definitely covering my face with the book.
Rachel is hiding behind the book. In shame.
Yes, very much in shame.
Her face is about as red as the book, actually.
Hey, you know what? I blush really easily, just like a couple of our characters in the book. And that is okay.
That is perfectly okay. So now that we've talked around the book a lot, Rachel, do you want to tell our listeners what the book is actually about?
Sure. So here is a little bit of a premise for the people who haven't read it, haven't looked into it. So what if the Breakfast Club met Murder on the Orient Express? Follow Bronwyn Rojas, Nate McCauley, Cooper Clay, and Addie Prentice as they are investigated for the death of fellow classmate Simon Kelleher. All 5 of them end up in the same detention after school. While Nate is not a stranger to detention, Cooper, Addie, Bronwyn, and Simon are not frequent faces. However, after a fender bender in the parking lot, Simon starts having an allergic reaction to something peanut related and ends up dying when there are no EpiPens available. But who is to blame for Simon's death?
Dun, dun, dun.
And none of that is a spoiler because Simon dies by the end of chapter 1, I think.
Yeah, he's a dead man walking the minute you meet him, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So, surprise, there's a murder in the murder mystery, or somebody dies in the murder mystery.
As someone who has written a murder mystery, you write some characters to die, right? Like you write some characters and they end up dying.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have some characters that you write to die. And Simon was a character written to die.
We had a word for that when I was in, this is a big callback. When I was in high school, our collaborative writing group, we had to have like the one story we did, there was like an alien invasion and stuff. So like obviously characters had to die at some point. And we had a word that we used for like characters who were written to die. And I cannot remember what it was for the life of me.
Wow, Maggie, get with the
I know.
program.
I know. I'm the worst. So
Just the worst.
if you were from the RPW club, you have my greatest, deepest apology for forgetting what happened, what we called the characters we wrote to die.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely a thing. Simon was written to die, and I'm glad he's dead.
Hey, Maggie, that's not
sorry.
a nice thing to say.
That's okay. He's a fictional character, but it is also not a nice thing to say.
Why don't we start with Simon in our rundown of these characters?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have good reasons for maybe being glad he's dead is a bit of a stretch. Maybe I should just say I would not have cried at his funeral.
I think a lot of people did not cry at his funeral.
Fair enough. So let's talk about Simon.
The first thing that I wrote when talking about Simon and Maggie brought up is that Simon is, in fact, not gay. It's something that some people suspected throughout the entire thing, but Simon is not gay. He says it a couple times in flashbacks. Like, we hear directly from him that he is not gay. He is interested in one of the main character's girlfriends, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. He's breast friends. He is he is best friends with a girl named Janae. Is that how they said it in the audiobook?
Yeah, I think so.
Her name is spelled Janae. So I said it Janae in my head as I was reading it. It has been almost a year now since I originally listened to the audiobook, which is crazy to me. But he always wanted to be part of the popular crowd, and he was not part of the popular crowd. In fact, he kind of fear-mongered the entire school.
He kind of weaseled his way into the popular group. Like, he was kind of like adjacent to them, but he wasn't really in with them.
Yeah.
I also think I should clarify, I don't understand how high school politics work at all. So, but just based on my observations from the book.
Maggie was homeschooled-ish, went to virtual school-ish. How would you describe that?
Let's put it this way. I did Zoom school before it was cool.
Zoom school has never been cool.
I did distance learning before it was cool. No, I did a online school, like an online public school, charter school, something like that. I don't really remember, but that was my educational experience, and I turned out relatively normal, so I'm really proud of myself.
And I went to a very standard public high school.
Yeah. So parts of reading this book were actually like, oh, this is how people are like in real life. Fascinating. I felt like I was like a scientist observing an experiment or like something in the wild. I'm like,
yeah,
what an interesting observation.
What an interesting reaction.
Yes.
But Simon runs an app and a blog called About That, in which he reveals secrets of students, but not directly. He just uses initials. But everybody kind of knows who he's talking about.
He's not really subtle.
No. Subtlety was not Simon's skill set.
No.
He's also super allergic to peanuts, which is how he dies.
Mm-hmm.
And is just creepy.
Yeah. Like, yeah. I don't really know how else to say that. He has weird vibes.
He would be a student that I would teach, but would also keep at a distance.
Does
that make sense? He would not. For people who don't know, I am a teacher. I have some students that I call my ducklings because you get attached to certain teachers. He would not have been one of my ducklings.
Mm-hmm. I think that makes sense. I also don't really get the impression that he other than wanting to be part of the popular crowd, he doesn't seem like the kind of student that is like building, like wants to build connections with his peers. Like in general, other than like wanting to be seen. I think because like his whole thing was like wanting to be in with the popular crowd isn't so much that he can be friends with them, it's so that he can have like the same social power that they do.
He felt like he deserved it. He wanted what he deserved.
He felt like it was owed to him.
Yes. And one thing I do want to note is that Simon was very intelligent. Like he was in the running for valedictorian. He literally coded his entire app. Like he did all of it, and he was very intelligent.
Right.
He was also very creepy.
Yes.
He did not follow the Spider-Man rule of with great power comes great responsibility. He did not do that well. He, in fact, would have been a villain.
Yes. I was going to say something and I was like, oh, we're not talking about the spoilers yet, so I'm going to hold back.
No, we are saving the spoilers for the end. So if you've not yet read this book, we're trying real hard to not spoil anything.
Other than the fact that Simon is super dead.
And we'll also talk about the things that Simon has over certain students, because those weren't necessarily major revelations.
Yeah, those are things you don't necessarily learn them right away in the story, but you learn them pretty quick. Especially since you're going around through each character's head.
Yes.
In the story.
I would say, hey, let's talk about the most obvious one, but they are also my favorite characters, so I want to save them for a little bit longer.
Rachel's playing favorites, but we're not surprised. I almost think we should go in order. Like, what order are they introduced in the book? Because I think Bronwyn is first.
Bronwyn is first. I color-coded my book. Bronwyn is first.
Shall we start with Bronwyn then?
I would love to start with Bronwyn. And just for the record, I am very much a Bronwyn, and we will talk about that in just a second. So when it comes to the Breakfast Club, Bronwyn is the brains. She's super intelligent, will be valedictorian, is Yale bound, not really in the popular group, but not in the like creepy nerds group. Although she is a mathlete and does model UN, she appears to have her life completely together and has a plan for everything. She is planning on dating the cute mathlete until graduation, then breaking up shortly before going to college. And it is noted by several characters, and I'm pretty sure by Addie, Nate, and Cooper, that she recently kind of stepped into her cuteness and was really starting to move away from the like childhood cute and more into like the adulthood cute.
Gotcha.
She plays piano, and that is a reoccurring thing throughout the novel, especially her focus on variations on the canon, and never does anything bad.
Bad in quotation marks there.
Because the thing that she does, I would categorize as bad.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
She cheats on every single chem exam from like midterm till the end of the year.
Yeah. In the preceding semester. Or in the preceding school year, I should say.
Yeah.
I forgot that schools go by year, not by semester.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the school.
Right,
so
that's true.
In this case, what I was able to deduce is that they took yearly classes. But that is what Sherlock. Thank you. That is the item that Simon holds over her. Yeah. But just to prove that I am a Bronwyn to you, I have 3 pages of notes that have been formatted to take the least amount of space on pages, because I do like to print things out, and I want to print this out. My full notes, when I initially hand wrote them on a half legal pad, was at least 12 pages.
That's something.
And I went through...
And it's color-coded.
Yeah, my annotations, my flaggies are color coded. And I went through 4 books of my flaggies, which means I think definitely over 150 flaggies were used.
That is many.
That is many. But they're all color coded.
And now you know how to find things.
Indeed. And usually once I like physically read a book, I can tell you, oh, it's on this side of the page or it's on this side and it's approximately this far in. Yeah. My English teacher coworkers all make fun of me for whenever we're providing an example. It is my job to always find the quotes because I know what I'm looking for. Yeah.
So Rachel's definitely a Bronwyn. I'm also a Bronwyn, but we don't need to talk about that right now.
How do you feel about Bronwyn?
I don't think she was, we'll talk about the character that I had the most mixed feelings about in a second here, I think. There were times when I was like, I don't know. I overall, I liked Bronwyn a lot. I liked that. I think a lot of her character arc in this book is her letting go of some of the expectations that she has for herself and that others around her have for her. That was a lot of pronouns in one sentence, but you get what I'm saying. But that didn't happen in a way that felt like, oh, the good girl goes rebellious and like does drugs or whatever.
Because she doesn't do that.
She does not do that.
She does not do drugs.
Right. But like it would be so easy to write like, oh, Bronwyn, like the good girl, the goody two shoes, and then like she does some like dramatic change. I felt like her character arc was really realistic and showed good character growth for her.
She definitely went from having like one personality trait to being a very well-rounded person.
Yes. Yeah. I think there were times when I thought like, and I have to keep telling myself, I was like, Maggie, you're reading books about people in high school. You did not make very good choices in high school. People make bad choices in high school. That's like what it's for almost. But there were also times when I was just like, oh, like, why did you do that? Like this whole thing with her cheating on these chemistry exams. I was like, why would you do that? I understand why.
Did you know?
Did you
know that of the groups of students who cheat, it is not the standard or co-taught students for the most part. It is usually the honors and AP students.
I totally believe it.
Oh, yeah. The reason why normally that's given is because they don't have enough time.
Yeah.
That it hurts me as a teacher. It hurts me as a teacher.
And like, so yeah, I understood why Bronwyn would cheat on all these exams, but I also I just kept watching her like, her parents hand her like so much.
Oh yeah.
Like she like, I think it's mentioned like her family has all gone to Yale or like she's some kind of like legacy or something, like they've done Ivy League schools and things like that. Like, so obviously there's a lot of pressure from her family and her parents especially. And there's also sort of this pressure that she puts on herself because of her sister, which I think we might talk more about later.
Yeah.
But I also was just like, there is so much support for her. This felt like I was just like, honey, this was a poor choice. But again, I also understand why she did that.
Yeah. And can I transition us to our next character?
Yes, of course.
I don't think is going to be who you think it is.
Really?
Speaking of pressure, I want to talk about Mr. Cooper Clay.
Ah, yes.
Mr. Cooper Clay, the athlete. My first note after the athlete is just baseball in all capital letters because
he's a jock.
He's the athlete, but all he does is play baseball. And that is all that his dad wants from him.
if Bronwyn's main personality trait is being like the perfect student, then Cooper's one personality trait is baseball.
Yes. He is very much like an all-American boy, the boy next door. Like he falls into that stereotype. And we love him. He's very much almost a himbo.
Except he's not really dumb.
No, he's kind of portrayed
not stupid.
No, but he's kind of portrayed as like dumber than a box of rocks. But he's actually intelligent, and he's like emotionally aware of the people around him.
Yes.
Which is not always expected of athletes.
Particularly male athletes.
Yes, for sure. He moved to Bayview in 9th grade. So Bayview is where this all takes place. And he's originally from like the South. So he has an accent, and that occasionally comes out.
It comes out more when he's under pressure, I think they say, right?
Oh, so much. Or when he's stressed. I love it. I love it. It brings me joy. He is in the same friend group as Addie, who we will talk about, I think, next. And then we'll go back to my favorite character. And he is best friends with a kid named, well, I wrote this very specifically because I felt like it needed to be clarified. There is a character named Jake
from State Farm.
Jake Riordan, who is dating Addie, who we're going to talk about in a second. And Cooper is Jake's best friend, but Cooper's best friend is Luis.
Right.
And I think that is a
good distinction to make.
Yes. So, and I would say that Luis's best friend is Cooper. And Luis we learn more about in the next book, and I love him.
Yes, I like him a lot too.
He plays a very minor role in this book. Initially in the blog post about the 4 of these kids, he is accused of doing steroids to up his baseball game.
And this
not
is
do steroids.
It turns out we can talk. And that is backed up by evidence. Like we see other characters, like he's being scouted by colleges and like minor league teams and things. And there's one point where he's talking to a coach. I forget if it's from a college or if it's like a professional
it's the Padres. So professional.
That is professional. And he's like, wow, you had really good improvement over the last year. And Cooper's just like, yeah, I did extra like workouts and training and stuff. And he's like, yeah, it's almost too good to be true, huh? And there's this sort of like awkward silence. Yeah. So it would be like when he is accused of doing steroids, there is evidence to support that. But actually
it's unfounded in that he wasn't doing them.
Yes.
But it wasn't unfounded in that his game significantly improved. Like he went from pitching like 85 mile per hour balls to 94 and 95 in a matter of months.
And as we find out later, it's because his dad put pressure on him to like hold back in his earlier high school years so that he would seem more impressive later on. So I guess it worked, but it also kind of backfired.
We are, and I think I can speak for both of us when I say this, we are not Mr. Clay's biggest fan, like the dad Clay. Yes. We are not his biggest fan.
I do not like him.
But we do love in the Clay family.
Yes.
The grandma.
I love
Nani.
her so much.
She is just the sweetest little thing. And she's like, she ends up having a heart attack and is in the hospital at one point. And she's just like talking to Cooper. And she's like, you got something you want to tell me, boy? Like, and she like even sends the younger brother away and is like, Cooper, like, you can talk to me about anything, right? Anything. And in his head, he is freaking out, but outside he's just blushing. because he has been dating this girl named Keely, who is known as the like most beautiful girl on campus, is up there with the popular kids, best friends with Addie Prentice. But Maggie, do you want to do the reveal?
Oh, the reveal.
Yeah.
So as it turns out, Cooper is actually gay, and he has been hiding this for a long time, or for some significant amount of time. I think it's not really specified. He has kind of kept up the facade of dating Keely because he doesn't. I think it's partly because he doesn't want to hurt her. He's like, she's a nice girl, and I don't want to break her heart. But it's also like he has not. He is not out in at the beginning of the book. And he is very afraid of his family's reaction in particular.
Mostly his dad's.
Yes. And how they would react if they were to find out he's gay.
And he doesn't out himself.
Yes.
I was sobbing uncontrollably.
I think honestly, that may have been one of the most upsetting. I think that may have been the most upsetting scene in the book for me. I mean, I know there was like people dying and stuff, but like basically, go ahead.
This felt the most shocking because we didn't necessarily know it was coming.
Yes. So what happens is over the course of the investigation into Simon's death, I lost my train of thought. It was going and then it just hit a full stop.
It turns out that where the steroids post initially was written, there was a previous post that was saved that was outing Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
And the police found that initial posting and had to start investigating that. So just through a series of questions, people started figuring out that Cooper was gay.
Mm-hmm. And he gets basically outed to his whole school because of the investigation.
His whole school, his whole his whole universe kind of imploded in that moment because he stopped getting scouted by colleges and the major and minor leagues. Like he went from the top of like his world to like 6 feet under. He felt like he had died. And you know who was there in the back of his corner cheering him on the entire time?
Grandma.
Mm-hmm. Grandma and Chris, his boyfriend.
Yes. And I think so we learn before we find out that Cooper is gay, we know that he's been texting somebody or in contact with somebody named Chris. We don't know who Chris is. We come to find out that Chris is actually his boyfriend.
We like Chris.
We do like Chris a lot. But I'm trying to think of what does his grandma say to him at one point? Because she's talking like, like whenever you talk to Keely, you always seem like so like you're just putting up with it. And she says, but I notice when you get these texts from whoever this other person is, your face lights up. You look so happy to talk to them. And I was just like, I think it felt really nice that he had a member of his family in his corner. And I really like Grandma. She might be my favorite side character.
Oh, for sure. It's between her, the parole officer that we haven't talked about yet, and then Addie's sister, Ashton.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, do we want to talk about Addie next?
Yes. So Addie is the princess of the group. She is in the same friend group as Cooper. She is dating Jake, who is
we talked about him. He's
best friends with
adjacent.
Cooper. Yeah. And I'm going out of order with my notes, but that's fine. She cheats on Jake with a kid named TJ. And Simon finds out about it, and that's what gets posted about her. That's what he has against her. And before this, we kind of noticed that Jake is a little manipulative, and that's not a spoiler for anything. because it is very obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And after the news comes out, she and Jake break up, and she gets kicked out of the friend group.
Mm-hmm. She is basically like excommunicated
By everyone except our boy Cooper.
except Cooper. He's still like, and she's like, why would you do this? Like, you are like, this is not helping you. And
Mm-hmm.
because he's a good kid and we like him.
Cooper has so much emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
But Maggie, how do you feel about Addie?
I really did not like Addie at first.
Mm-hmm.
I liked her a lot by the end of the book, but at first I was trying to keep an open mind because I was like, obviously we're getting set up by like putting these characters into their stereotypes, right? And we're going to find out
Mm-hmm.
that they're not actually as stereotypical as like the boxes that we put them in. But at first I just thought she was, see, I want to be careful what I say because I don't want it's going to sound mean no matter what I say. I'm a bit of a judgmental person sometimes. At first, I was like, this girl's got no spine. Like,
It's not wrong.
and as I read more of the book, I was like, oh, she has no spine because no one ever taught her how to have one.
Right.
So like it's not really her fault. It's just like she felt very flaky at first to me. And I don't think that is a flaw with the book.
No.
I'm just saying that is her flaw as a character that
it's definitely part of her character development.
yes, absolutely. But she has like, and I think part of the reason I did not like her was because I did not like Jake, like from the minute I saw him. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, girl, why are you still with him? Like, we're finding out like all this stuff, like Jake comes to pick her up for a date, right? And she's wearing an outfit, and he's like, you're gonna wear that to go out to like the beach or whatever.
He tells her to change.
He tells her to go change, and she does. And I was like, you should have smacked him.
Yeah.
At least.
But to kind of come to Addie's defense,
mm-hmm.
her mom is super creepy.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I would say she's a different brand of creepy than Simon, but I would almost say she's creepier.
She has always pushed Addie to be in a relationship. Addie and Ashton. Ashton
mm-hmm.
is the older sister. And the mom is very much a cougar, which, like, nothing wrong with being a cougar. But she is, like, creepy cougar. Like, kind of hits on Jake.
I was going to say, I think Addie mentions, like, at least once, and I think several times, like, that her mom has, like, definitely been checking out Jake when he comes over. And I'm like, ah!
Yeah, it's super uncomfortable. And
that's a way to put it.
As a teacher, ew. Like,
yeah.
I deal with way too many high schoolers, and they're all gross. Love y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all gross. No, thank you.
Yeah.
So her entire character arc is like her discovering who she is.
Mm-hmm. Because she's never been pushed to pursue her own interests. Her mom has always pushed her, like, you know, find yourself a man so he can take care of you.
Yeah. Mom is very much the one that totes that a woman is defined by the person she's with.
Mm-hmm. And Addie, through a lot through the influence of her sister Ashton, I think, starts to realize that she does not have to be defined by who she is or isn't dating.
Yes. And so Grandma is one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
She is tied with Ashton. I see a lot of myself in Ashton.
Mm-hmm. As the older sister.
As the oldest sister.
Mm-hmm.
Because in my family there are three kids under me, my sister, and then I have two brothers. So I am the oldest and the oldest sister.
Mm-hmm.
So
I really liked that Ashton was there to give Addie like I don't know if tough love is the right word, but like she was definitely there. Like she wasn't she wasn't really the type to be like, oh, like let me help you feel better. She was like, Addie, what are you doing? What the heck are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
to knock some sense into her in a very loving way, in a way that was like,
Yes.
I'm doing this because I care about you. But also she didn't take any of Addie's crap.
She
And that was
almost
good.
had like a beyond scared straight moment, except when it came to relationships, because as we discover, Ashton's marriage is falling apart.
Mm-hmm. Ashton has been married for like what, 2 years in this book?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So her marriage is falling apart.
Her marriage is done.
Yeah. It ends by the end of the book.
Yes.
And that is a good thing.
Yes, because the dude was terrible. You cannot say that you liked Charlie.
Oh, yes. Yeah. He was a trash bag.
Yeah.
Not the worst person in the whole book.
Not at all.
But still a trash bag.
Nate Macaulay, aka my favorite. So he is the stereotypical criminal character. He is a known drug dealer. And just to preface this, if y'all think that you're slick in high school and that you can deal drugs and like teachers have no idea, you are so wrong. We know who you are. We just can't prove anything. So like, we know. I want to know how much his teachers knew because
oh yeah.
But Nate is currently on probation for dealing. He deals marijuana and painkillers, and Nate makes it a point to not deal anything more than that. We'll get to why in just a second.
And I think he mentions as well, again, not that you should be dealing drugs, but also I think he makes the point like he does not use drugs himself, correct?
No, he might occasionally smoke weed, but he is not a regular drug user.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And Simon knows that Nate is continuing to deal drugs even though he is on probation.
Which is sort of his dirt against Nate.
Yes. So Nate is the easy scapegoat.
Like he's the stereotypical bad boy. He's the kind of person that your parents would be like, don't hang around him. He's a bad influence.
Yes.
Like every bad boy, he rides a motorcycle. He's kind of a snarky, smart aleck. Doesn't really
for it.
Just kind of like doesn't give a crap about anything.
Yeah, and he's regularly in casual relationships. Like he will have sex with just about anyone. But he's not creepy about it.
Yeah.
Also, to provide a little more context, his mom is dead because of drug issues, and his dad is an alcoholic on disability. So Nate's main source of income is his drug dealing.
Yeah.
You were going to say something, Maggie.
I totally forgot what I was going to say.
Can I say the most controversial thing that I think I wrote in this entire piece?
Give us the tea, Rachel.
Nate has a very strong moral compass, but he always thinks that he is on the wrong side.
Interesting. Can you explain a little bit more of what you mean by that? Because I think I get what you mean, but I want to make sure before I respond.
He very much thinks that he knows what is right and what is wrong. And he always puts himself on the quote unquote wrong side, no matter what he does. Even when he does things like defend Cooper after Cooper is outed and then made fun of. Like being a genuinely nice kid who takes Bronwyn out the back way of the school when there are reporters sitting outside in the front. Like he has emotional intelligence. He knows how to use it. He doesn't recognize himself as being a good person. I have had students like this and it breaks my heart because they don't think that they are good people. And I see them and I am like, you are a good person. Like the way you behave, you are a good person. Of these 4 students, Nate Macaulay and Cooper Clay would be my ducklings.
I can believe that. I think, yeah, I really like the point you made though, because Nate feels like he's kind of gotten like all of these characters really have gotten pushed into a box, right? And Nate's just like, well, if everyone's going to treat me like this, then that must be who I am. And so really, I mean, this is a broad oversimplification, but all of the characters, they are kind of learning to define themselves by their own terms and not by the terms that other people have put on them in different ways. Like, you know, Addie is learning how to define herself, not how her mother defines her. Bronwyn is learning that she is more than being the star student and, you know, things like that. You know, Cooper is like, he's put in this situation where he's feels like he has disappointed his parents and everything, especially his father, who has put so much time and money into making him this star athlete. And I think Nate is growing out of the labels that he has put on himself of being not a good person.
Yeah. And I also want to put in here, because this is where the probation officer comes in.
Oh, yes.
She's also one of my favorites. She is very much the take no crap from him. And I love it because that is how I am as a teacher, where it's like, I love you and I will work my butt off to make sure you get what you need. But also, like, you need to step up the tiniest bit.
Yes. Yeah. I really liked her because she kind of is that sort of good adult figure that Nate gets to have in his life, even if he is very reluctant to have one. Like, he is doing the bare minimum for his probation officer, right? But she also, like, she knows that and she doesn't really care. She's like, I'm still going to be here and I'm going to try to turn you into a decent, like, I am going to try to help you get out of this situation that you have found yourself in. And or honestly, that has been forced on you.
Yeah. Because, like, based on Nate's circumstances, a lot went wrong.
Yeah. And it wasn't really his fault.
No. But something that I didn't mention earlier because I wanted to wait until we circled around and talked about Nate. And again, this kind of goes with that strong moral compass but always thinks he's wrong. He has always had a crush on Bronwyn. Bronwyn has always kind of had a crush on him, even though it didn't logically make sense. And we get to watch this budding romance take place. I think so many feelings.
Yeah, because they went to like a private elementary school together, right?
Yeah.
So like they knew each other as children in a small school.
And he is so soft and gentle with her, but still thinks that he's a bad person. And yes, you can be a bad person and still be very soft and gentle with certain people. But I read Nate Macaulay, I read from his perspective, and I can't think, oh, you are a bad person.
I think again, does deal drugs, but any like bad actions that he takes are not necessarily out of malice, but out of a kind of, I almost want to say desperation.
Yeah.
Or feeling like there are no other options.
Yeah. And I also want to put this out there, unrelated. He has a lizard, and the lizard's name is Stan, and I love
the lizard. Isn't it? It's a big lizard too, right? I don't know much about reptiles.
I can't remember what they said Stan was, but Stan is named after Stanley.
Of course.
And we love him.
We do.
But Nate Macaulay is my favorite out of all of these characters.
Yes. Yeah, we'll take a break. When we come back, we will be talking about spoilers. So if you haven't read One of Us is Lying, I don't know what else you want us to do to convince you to do it, but you should go read it and then come back and listen to the rest of this podcast. Or if you've already read it, or if you just don't care about spoilers, keep on listening.
Welcome back, everybody. We hope you enjoyed the break. Just as a reminder, we are about to talk about spoilers. So if you care about those, we will see you later. Please come back and join us after you've read the book. Otherwise, here we go.
I feel like we need to circle back to Simon, actually.
Yeah. So Simon is a sick and twisted individual,
to say the least.
Seriously. Throughout the course of the investigation, Maeve, who is Bronwyn's younger sister and one of the main characters in One of Us is Next, is very adept at using her computer. Like, she is a hacker. And she got into the website background for About That, which, as a reminder, is the app that Simon runs, and figured out what his username was, searched his username, and found Simon in a bunch of chat rooms talking about a lot of school shootings.
They were, I think they're specified as being like 4chan threads, right?
Yeah, they are.
Which, like, big shocker right there, am I right? For those who don't know, 4chan is a cesspool of humanity.
I mean, you could say that about any website online.
This is true. This is very true.
But 4chan definitely has a reputation.
Yes. Yeah, and so we come to find out, like, Simon has posted things like either like praising school shooters in some ways, or has joined in on threads that praise school shooters, but he also criticized them but not
very heavily.
Not in the way that you would expect.
Yes, he is like, wow, really original. Could have come up with something better. Why don't you try to be creative? And I'm just like, oh, dear God.
Yeah. He's like, well, if you're going to stick it to the man, like, do something worth remembering. Don't, like, any random person can just run into a school with a automatic weapon. Like, that's his line of thinking, which, again, sick and twisted.
That, yes, understatement.
Yes.
And
so, yeah, go ahead, Rachel. Lead us through this.
So we discover that. Meanwhile, they call themselves the Murder Club, and all of their lawyers have told the four main characters to not talk to each other. Like, don't do it. Don't talk to each other. Don't communicate. Don't talk about anything. But we see the budding romance between Nate and Bronwyn, and Addie and Cooper were already kind of friends. And when I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but slowly they all end up eating lunch together. And this happened shortly after Cooper is outed to the entire school. So their table consists of Bronwyn and Maeve, and Bronwyn's two best friends. Nate joins, but he's not normally at lunch. I'm going through in my head. Cooper and his best friend Luis, Addie, and then Janae, who is Simon's former best friend.
Right.
And Janae is the stereotypical, like, goth student.
And
we love her for that.
I have all the respect for her.
She is kind of portrayed as a weak character, I think, where she is constantly crying because her best friend has died. And it doesn't really have anyone else until Addie kind of befriends her in the bathroom because they're both in the bathroom crying.
Yeah. But I also think, like, so we come to find out later that Janae knew Simon's plan, or knew parts of it.
We haven't talked about that yet.
Oh, Sorry, I jumped way far ahead. I mean, this is the spoiler part, so I feel like we can go a little bit out of order.
Yes, but we didn't say anything about Simon yet.
I'm sorry, I lost track. I thought we had.
No, I was going to talk more about that other character first. But since you spoiled it, go ahead, Maggie.
Since I spoiled the spoilers.
Yeah. Continue
in the
spoiling.
spoiler part of the podcast that is full of spoilers.
Continue spoiling.
So sorry that I jumped ahead when I could have sworn we talked about it. That's fine. My brain's just not working. So we come to find out that Simon actually died by suicide, but set it up in a way that our four main characters would be persons of interest in his death, that his death would become suspicious, that there would be investigation. And essentially his plan is to ruin the lives of these four students who all basically have something that he wanted. Like they all in some aspect have the life that he feels like he was owed, I think.
And he felt wronged by each character.
Yes.
So Bronwyn accidentally gave him the wrong date for Model UN. Cooper got him blacklisted from a party. Nate slept with the girl he liked. And then there's Addie. Addie didn't do anything.
Oh, that's right. I was like, what did Addie do? She didn't do anything.
She didn't do anything to Simon. She did something to Jake.
Yes. So in order for Simon's plan to work, he needed sort of an inside man, quote unquote, to keep things interesting after his death. So he recruits Jake. He gets this dirt on Addie. Right?
Go ahead.
Am I saying this right? He gets this dirt on Addie about her cheating on her boyfriend, Jake. And so Simon goes to Jake, right?
Kind of. So
kind of. You
order
explain.
of events are a little. So Simon asked Janae to do it. He asked his best friend to do it. And they were like, this started over the summer and Simon was bragging about it like at the pool. And Jake overheard and started making fun of him. And Simon was like, dude, your girlfriend cheated on you.
Right.
So Jake got super pissed because he is a terrible person who is
very
creepy.
Possessive.
And because they have this former friendship, Jake was like, fine, I'll do what you need me to. Like, I will do this, but we also have to frame Addie.
Yes.
So Janae knows that Jake is the one doing this. Janae knows that Simon died by suicide. And she is now friends with Addie, who's about to be framed for the crime.
Right.
So instead of framing Addie, Janae frames Nate, and Nate gets arrested.
Because again, Nate is the perfect scapegoat, right? He's already got a criminal record. So like, of course, the drug dealer is going to commit murder. Like, duh.
Right. Obviously.
Naturally. It's not like there's a big jump between those crimes at all.
No, not at all.
I am not a lawyer.
Nor are you a criminal psychologist.
Nope.
So we have a meeting of the murder club. Everybody minus Nate, and we are including Chris and Ashton in this case. And they run into air quotes Nate's lawyer, because the murder club has found out who caused the accident. And Simon paid those guys to cause this accident as a distraction so he could have this happen. And it's kind of decided that Addie would go and talk to Janae because she hadn't been in school. And as she's talking to Janae, Jake shows up.
Oh, that's right. Before we talk, well, let's talk about Jake first.
Okay, what do you want to say about Jake?
I hate him.
I think that's putting it mildly.
That is putting it mildly. The words that I would use to describe Jake would not be able to be put on the air.
Without an explicit warning.
Without an explicit warning. I think that sums up my feelings about Jake rather succinctly. He's terrible.
Yes, he is the type of villain that women would fear and some men would cheer on.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Which is absolutely terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
And as a reminder, these kids are 17.
Yes. I don't want to say Jake is worse than Simon because I don't think that's true. But I also think, at least for me as a reader, Jake as a villain hits a lot closer to home. Jake feels a lot more real.
Yes. Jake feels like a student I could have in my classroom, which is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, I know people who have, like, I have had friends, I have known people who have dated people like Jake. I have known Jakes.
Yeah. And that is terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Because it gets worse. I'm jumping back into the timeline, Maggie.
Oh, right. Yes, go ahead.
Because while they're at Janae's house and Jake finds out that Addie's there, she takes off running because, like, Jake is coming after her, and she trips and falls and sprains her ankle. Jake catches up with her and tries to murder her. Like, literally is choking her, slamming her head against the ground. Like, she ends up with a fractured skull because of him.
I forgot about that. I knew he attacked her. I forgot about the fractured skull. Holy crap.
At one point, he stops because Janae comes out and she's like, you need to stop. Like, they already know. And because Simon had this whole manifesto, Janae handed over the manifesto. Yeah. And the reason Janae did not speak up before, and this is something that I forgot to highlight earlier, is that Jake was blackmailing her. Right. So not only is Jake an accomplice, he's blackmailing Janae, and he's an attempted murderer.
Yep. And I was going to say earlier, like, just going back to Janae, the whole reason that I accidentally spoiled our conversation, I guess, was I was going to say part of the reason Janae isn't just crying because she's mourning Simon, right?
Right.
She's also crying because she is under a lot of stress right now. And we don't know that until later. Like, she was supposed to plant evidence on Addie to get her framed. And she was like, I couldn't do it. She's dealing with this pressure of Jake blackmailing her. And yeah.
I cannot imagine the stress and pain that she is under. And one of the things that I also appreciate about Addie is that she's the only person that asked Janae how she was doing since Simon had died. Because everybody pretty much said, like, I'm kind of glad Simon's dead. Like, he wasn't a good person.
They were just kind of like good riddance, right?
Yeah. And, like, sure, they attended the funeral, but nobody was, like, so emotional that they couldn't contain themselves except for Janae.
Simon didn't have any friends.
Except for Janae. And Janae refused to help him with this manifesto he had. And, the part that really hurts me about the whole Jake thing is that as he's strangling Addie, Cooper comes back and like beats him, like comes over and lands just a really good punch. And Addie, because it's from her perspective, goes, I remember I remember Jake flying backwards. And I don't know how, but I could breathe again. And then we switch perspectives and I can't remember where we are, but eventually we get to Cooper and we find out that it's Cooper who punched Jake. And Cooper has this moment of, I don't know how to reconcile the person that I called my friend with the person that I punched.
Because
so many feelings.
Because Cooper is the type to see the best in everybody, I think.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is to a fault. Oftentimes it is a good thing, but I think sometimes that line of thinking is to a thought. It's to a fault. There we go. that line of thinking is two-way thought. Yes, that's how most thinking works.
I'm going to amend that statement a little bit and say he sees the good in the people that he knows, but he will judge you until he knows you.
Yes, that I think that's fair. That's more
because he does that to Nate, right? But then they end up as kind of buddies.
Yes,
they're not like best friends.
Well, I was just gonna say Nate sort of cracks me up in some ways because like he kind of ends up in this group of very extroverted people who are all like. And like he's like kind of friends with most of them, but he also just doesn't want to socialize, and they all kind of force him to. And I kind of think it's funny. Like,
but we love him.
We do love him, but it is just also funny, just to me. Like, yeah, I would say that Cooper and Nate are friends, but like, mostly not through any effort on Nate's part.
It's literally like they have shared traumas and the girls make them spend time together.
Yes. But also to Nate's credit, like he was the first person to stand up for Cooper when he was outed at school. Do you have it bookmarked?
Of course I have it bookmarked, Maggie.
Yeah, I guess minor spoiler for the next book because I'm sure we'll talk about this, but I really appreciated. So the sequel to One of Us is Lying is One of Us is Next, which focuses on a new set of characters, but we also see the previous, I think what do they end up calling them? The Bayview 4 or whatever. So we end up seeing glimpses of them later. And it made me happy to see that the four of them were still connected to each other in some ways.
Yes.
Rachel is still looking through her book.
I have found the right spot. Okay, I found it. So essentially, they're in the lunchroom and somebody has just made a gay joke and it's not appropriate. And Nate's walking into the cafeteria and he's like, oh, for F's sake. And like very loud, very obnoxious, like very serious. You losers give a crap, get a life. Oh, the boy.
Good stuff.
To which a girl yells out, oh, you're just boyfriends. And I'm summarizing here.
This is paraphrased.
Yes. This part is a direct quote, though. Because
Can you tell me what page this is on? Because I want to look at it while you're reading.
We are on page 260. Top of the page, first full paragraph.
In the hardcover edition.
In the hardcover. Nate zeroes in on Vanessa's smug face without a trace of self-consciousness. Really? You've got something to say? I don't even know your name, and you tried to stick your hand down my pants the last time we were at a party. More laughter, but this time it's not at Cooper's expense. In fact, if there's a guy at Bayview you haven't tried that with, I'd love to meet him. Vanessa's mouth hangs open as a hand shoots up from the middle of the cafeteria. Me, calls a boy sitting at the computer nerd table. His friends all laugh nervously as the pulsing attention of the room, seriously, it's like a wave moving from one target to the next, focuses on them. Nate gives him a thumbs up and looks directly at Vanessa. There you go. Try to make that happen and shut the hell up. Oh, sure, Nate could have done that 100 different ways. He could have avoided calling someone else out. But it felt so redemptive. And it very much concreted their friendship. Nate has his back, even if they aren't friends.
Right. And I would say that they're friends, but they're also they're not buddies in the sense you'd go hang out with them, but
again, they've shared a trauma.
Nate strikes me as the friend who is there when it counts. Not necessarily the hang out all the time kind of friend.
Yes. Unless you're buying drugs.
Yes.
But that's something else. So
he's not supposed to be doing that.
And he does stop.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
But so Nate ends up going to jail. We talked about that. And like refuses to talk to Bronwyn, either through his lawyer, through his mom. Like he is done. And as a reminder, this boy literally said that he could not breathe when he was around her because he liked her so much.
Can I say something?
Yes.
We haven't talked about Nate's mom.
Nate's mom. I spoiled that, didn't I?
Mm-hmm. Again, we're talking about spoilers. So, by the way, Nate's mom is not actually dead. He assumed she was, I should say. She kind of ran off somewhere, and he just assumed.
It was easier than explaining that his mom was a drug addict who ran away.
Mm-hmm. So.
And then she shows up one day out of the blue.
Mm-hmm. And he's like, to say the least. But yeah, so his mom is kind of around towards the end of the book.
We do like her. I liked her.
Mm-hmm. She is kind of trying to make amends, it seems like. Nate
is
very resistant to that.
Nate is very resistant to anyone showing him any kind of love.
Because he doesn't think he deserves it.
He doesn't think he deserves it. And everyone who was supposed to love him has abandoned him in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly that boy needs a hug.
His own parents.
Yeah. Even though his dad is there, he is not there.
Not there mentally.
No, he's very checked out. That's probably why I like the probation officer so much, is like she is there.
Mm-hmm. She gives him an adult who is consistently in his life,
mm-hmm.
without being sort of like this overbearing, like, I am going to care about you kind of person.
Yeah.
I think she realizes that he needs that kind of consistency, but he doesn't. If she goes over the top with like, I'm trying to help you, like I'm trying to do what's best for you, Nate will be even more resistant to her. I kind of apologize for bringing so much up in my classroom, but I also find that it's really relevant to this story. Mm-hmm.
But I always tell my kids, like, I'm the annoying older sister. So like, I love you. I'm not going to say that to you because that is creepy. Mm-hmm. But like, I will poke and prod in the most loving way possible.
Right.
And it is for you.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it works out where like eventually people will be like, okay, this is really the problem. And then we can work from that. And I definitely think that Nate is a type of character that would respond to that.
For sure.
Eventually, not immediately. Yeah.
But yeah, so we've cleared up what happened with Nate's mom. Let's go back to Nate and Bronwyn.
So he just refuses to talk to her. She's there when he gets out of prison, and he's frustrated because he wanted her nowhere near there. And he also didn't want her anywhere near his house, like near his dad, nothing. He was like, this is the one good thing in my life, and I want it to stay that way. So for the longest time, he wouldn't talk to his mom about her, like nothing.
Right.
And Bronwyn is heartbroken.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like this boy that I just spent months getting to know and then defending, literally feeding his lawyer evidence, is now rejecting me.
Rachel and I, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Go ahead. Mine is a continuation of that. So you do your things first and then I'll do mine.
I was just going to say, Rachel and I were talking about this earlier because like right at this point in the book, like as Nate has been released from prison or from jail or whatever, and basically ends up rejecting Bronwyn, like I was reading it, I was like, I understand why, and I
Mm-hmm.
understand the trauma that he has just endured, which is, I would argue, more than his peers because he is the one who got arrested, right?
Yeah. On
And
live television
mm-hmm.
too.
And
Ugh.
like compared to his peers, again, he is the easy target because he has no adults who will advocate for him.
He doesn't even
And
have friends that well.
he doesn't have the same resources that they do. Like, so he had like the minute he got arrested, Nate was basically like, well, this is it then. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to get out of this. So I understood, but I was also just ready to fight him just a little bit and then like give him a hug.
This is where Maggie and I differ in our opinions because she wants to like have an Edna mode moment with Nate and then give him a hug. And I want to give him a hug and like hiss at Bronwyn to go away for a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I didn't necessarily want them to like, I didn't necessarily need for them to continue whatever romantic relationship that they had earlier
Mm-hmm.
in the book. I just, Nate basically kind of dropped out of her life without any explanation. And I felt like he at least owed Bronwyn an explanation of, I can't do this right now. Or like, because I understood why he needed to have that space.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
And it's okay for us to have these differing
Mm-hmm.
opinions on it. Like we don't have to have identical opinions on a book.
Right.
Um but the good news
The good
is
news, there is good news.
there is good news. We do get closure with Nate and Bronwyn in this book because Bronwyn has a like symphony that she plays with, and somebody shows up on his motorcycle and apologizes, like
Mm-hmm.
legitimately apologizes.
I was really pleased with how that scene turned out. So again, all of the feelings that I just mentioned were before I got to this scene in the book. When I got to
Yes.
this last part, I was like, okay, like all
And this
is
is
forgiven.
literally the last scene in the book, and I'm pulling it out again because it just brings I was sitting in the car just like openly weeping
Mm-hmm.
again on the way back from IKEA. But they're all there. So Bronwyn's parents are there, her sister's there, but then Addie and Cooper are there
Mm-hmm.
too.
Doesn't
With
Chris come as well?
yes, Chris comes too, and like uh, so Cooper films it and is like, I will send you the video once I edit it. And that just to me speaks so much love. Like, hey, I recorded it. I'll let you see it, but I'm also going to like play around with it. And it's going to be this little mini gift to you.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I love that from him. And then Addie's like looking around the whole time, like trying to look for someone. And Bronwyn's like, what are you doing? And then they get outside.
For those of you playing along at home, what page are we on, Rachel?
We are on page 352 and 353 in the hardcover. And Bronwyn's dad's going to go pull the car around. And Bronwyn sees the motorcycle. And Maeve is like, hey, mom, let's go. So, like, you know, she was kind of in on it. Addie
Mm-hmm.
was in on it. And they literally start with, hey, and hi, Nate. Like, you know that they're not happy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm turning the page now. We're on 354. um Bronwyn keeps asking why, and Nate eventually goes, we're at the bottom of 354. Bronwyn. Nate rubs the back of his neck and swallows hard, and I realize he's as nervous as I am. I've been an idiot. Being arrested messed with my head. I thought you'd be better off without me in your life, so I just made that happen. I'm sorry. And then he continues. The thing is, I never really had anyone, you know? I'm not saying that so you'll feel bad for me, just to try to explain. I didn't get how stuff like this works. That you can't pretend you don't give a crap and it's done. Nate shifts his weight from one foot to the other, which I noticed since my eyes remain fastened on the ground. I've been talking to Addie. Love that. I've been talking to Addie about this because, he laughs a little, she won't let it go. I asked her if she thought you'd be mad at me if I tried to talk to you, and she said it didn't matter, that I owe you an explanation anyway. She was right, as usual. And then he continues. Again, I love seeing like people display emotional intelligence. So, an interruption. Bronwyn says, you weren't like just my boyfriend, but you were my friend. And all of that stopped when this happened. And he goes, I know it was, God, I can't even explain it, Bronwyn. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and it freaked me out. I thought I'd ruin you or you'd ruin me. That's how things tend to go in the Macaulay house. But you're not like that. He exhales sharply and his voice dips lower. You're not like anybody. I've known that since we were kids, and I effed up. I finally had my chance with you, and I effed it all up. I'm sorry. And then he says, like, I shouldn't have come, and I sprang this on you, and I ruined your big night. And then he asks her to go see a movie.
And it's specifically a movie that Bronwyn would like to see.
Yes.
They have very different tastes in movies. This has been a recurring theme in the book. But yes, he specifically invites her, hey, I know there's this movie that's showing that I know you want to see. Would you like to go?
Yes. And he like clarifies because she's dating the cute mathlete at this point. And he's like, just as friends, they're dating, air quotes. And then he's like, you know, just as friends. And they're like, just as friends. And he goes, I like you more, though. I miss you like crazy. As a friend. Okay, since I'm being honest here, more than a friend, but I get that's not where your head is. I'd still like to take you to a crappy movie and hang out with you for a couple hours if you'll let me. I
was really satisfied with that reconciliation between their characters at the end.
Yes.
And I must admit, I was very proud of Nate for owning his mistake. Yes. And I felt like he was able to explain without making it feel like an excuse, which is not something that everybody can do.
No.
He was like, look, I'm not trying to make excuses here, but this is why I did that. And I know that I realize now that it hurt you, and I'm sorry.
Yes. And again, like, this is an adult female writing a juvenile male. But we can still love it.
Indeed.
It makes me so emotional.
Do you need a moment?
Probably, but let's keep going.
Well, what else is there to say?
Oh, we didn't talk about the haircut at all.
Oh my gosh. How could we not talk about the haircut?
So, to preface this, Addie had beautiful blonde long hair.
Right.
And Jake loved it long.
You can't see Rachel's face, but she just made a very disgusted face after saying Jake's name.
Well, he deserves to have a disgusted face.
Yes, he does.
And after they broke up, and after Addie had done some healing, not all of her healing, she chops all of her hair off.
Yes. Now, and again, like earlier in the story, because Ashton has short hair, right? Her sister Ashton has short hair.
It's like a bob, yeah.
Yeah. And Addie has mentioned, like, I would love to get my hair cut short because, like, I think that would be really interesting and everything. But every time I mention it to Jake, he's like, no. And so finally, like, after she's broken up with everyone, she's like, you know what? I'm finally going to do it. And she does. And we were very proud of her. That was pretty much the moment I started liking her, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because, again, it could have so easily fallen into the trap of like girl goes through massive life change and cuts off all her hair as a symbol of it, which is a dumb trope. But I think it
that's
works
exactly
really,
what happened, but
right.
it worked really well.
But it works well because it is something that she has wanted to do anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And it also feels like a way of her saying, this is my life. I get to make the choices that I want to make.
Yeah. And it was also kind of like sticking it to her mom too, because she came back with that hair and her mom was like, oh my God, what did you do?
How are you going to get a man with hair like that?
Ugh. We do not like Addie's mom.
No.
At all. This is a total aside, but I just need to say it. I did not like any person involved at the school, be it the teachers, be it the principal, or the like student advocates who were there during the interrogations. I did not like a single one of them.
Yeah, they were all kind of terrible. Like, they were all kind of garbage.
Yeah, I was very pissed off, not gonna lie.
I would just say that I did not like their teacher that they all ended up getting detention with.
No.
He was kind of the worst.
Unfortunately, I do know teachers like that.
Oh well. Okay. I did have a couple of teachers in college, at least, who were very, I don't want to say they were technophobic, but they did not really like having technology in their classroom unless you needed it for like academic accessibility reasons. And like that I understood, but I did not like the way that this teacher approached it as like,
no,
your cell phones are the doom of humanity and whatever.
I think a lot of those opinions have changed since COVID has started and we've done a lot of virtual learning, but not nearly enough.
Yeah. I mean, it's here whether you like it or not. You got to learn to live with it.
Right. Any last minute thoughts you want to add, Maggie?
I really liked this book. I'm glad that you made me read it.
What was your star rating?
I think I gave it 4 stars. One of these days, I'm going to double check because that could be wrong. One of these days, you and I will have to talk about our star ratings because I feel like you and I rate books differently.
Yes, but I think you actually have a system and mine is based purely on vibes.
I don't know if I have a system. I tried to make a system once. It did not go well. I did not stick to it very well. I gave it 4 stars.
I gave it 5 stars.
4 stars. So like 4 stars is a good rating for me. Anything like 3 stars and up is generally pretty good feeling. 3 stars can go either way. But I mean, I liked this book enough to buy it in hard copy for myself. So like that is saying something.
If Karen M. McManus were to ever listen to this podcast, I just want her to know that she is one of the reasons I got back into reading this year.
Aww, that is high praise.
That is very high praise for me. It's like her, Maureen Johnson, Margaret Owen, and Rick Riordan are my reasons for reading right now.
Margaret Owen. But yes, those are all good reasons.
I love them.
I was going to say, when was this book published? I was just going to say
2017.
I feel like, in 2017, I would have been in college already.
Yeah.
So I was like, how old am I? I feel like when I was in the more traditional young adult reader age range, I also grew up in the dystopian boom of young adult literature. So like that is part of it. We can talk about that another day. Rachel made a gagging face.
I don't like dystopia.
Yeah. So there was not a lot of really good mystery books that
Not
weren't
for YA.
for YA in particular, and that weren't really like thriller books. Because I feel like there were some good mysteries, but they weren't necessarily, I don't know. I would not categorize One of Us is Lying as a quote unquote thriller.
No. And again, just because I love murder mysteries, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
comment on this because I've loved them since I was in middle and
Mm-hmm.
high school. And I can distinctly remember two YA murder mysteries, one that I read and one that I didn't, that were murder mysteries
Mm-hmm.
that did not have supernatural elements to it, that were actually YA
Mm-hmm.
from when I was in high school. When I was in high school, I was mostly reading adult murder mysteries
That makes sense.
because there weren't any in YA.
Mm-hmm. What were the two books you were thinking of? Do you remember what they were?
Yes, The Lovely Bones and The Body Finder.
Ah, don't
Mm-hmm.
know either of those.
The Body Finder actually did have some supernatural elements to it, in that the girl had abilities to find bodies and killers.
Hence the
But
body finder.
yes, but it was not a supernatural cause.
That makes sense.
So there was another book that I read called Crier's Cross,
Mm-hmm.
which also kind of a murder thriller situation. But spoiler for the book, it's like nowhere. Like you can hardly find it anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It was a haunted desk.
What?
Yeah, that like when you sat at the desk, it caused you to go bury yourself in the woods.
Huh.
So like not exactly.
That's something.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but all that to my point, I was just what I was trying to say was like, I am glad that there are books like this now.
Yes,
Like,
for sure.
it just makes me happy. It makes me happy that young adult literature has become a viable market where you don't necessarily have to play to the trends. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you do still, like, and a lot of people do still have to do that, but it's nice to see that there is more variety in genres to choose from. And it's not just like, well, if you want to read a good book, you read, here's these top
Yeah.
10 books, and they're all almost exactly the same.
Yes. And Goodreads, if you're listening, this is why we need more YA genre categories for the Goodreads Choice Awards.
See last episode.
Please.
Please, we're begging you.
Yeah. So
but I think that wraps everything up.
Yeah, it really does.
Well, I guess as we finish things up, you can always find us on social media as Book Expert Pod on Twitter and Instagram, or you can email us at notthebookexpert@gmail.com. And one of us will answer you if you DM us, or I don't know what the kids do these days, but send us an email.
One thing
Rachel.
we forgot, Maggie, was to preview our next episode.
Oh, okay. Preview the next episode for us, Rachel.
So next episode, we are going to be covering One of Us is Next, which is the sequel to One of Us is Lying, in which we follow 4 new students-ish. Maeve is in this. She is one of our main characters. She's the sister of Bronwyn. And we get some returning characters like Addie, Cooper, Nate, and Bronwyn are all going to be in the book, but we are focusing on some new individuals to us and what happens the year after One of Us is Lying.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to talking about that.
I have to reread it still.
We'll get to it eventually.
Yes, we will. So, as Maggie was saying, please connect with us on social media. If you need that all recounted, please rewind however long, and we will talk to you on the next episode.
Yeah, sounds good. Farewell.
Yee.